about He Who Shall Not Be Named. Or here, where it looks like they gave Mirabel's father some hidden Mickey ears. Or how the closing song literally brings together every other song from the show while also giving me some strong Spring Awakening vibes.
But the stars don't shine, they burn. All the things his mama wished.
Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that Luisa's Coliseum is filled with donkeys cheering her on. And of course, I have to get this rant off my chest, but when Mirabel climbs to the top of Bruno's room, what she's climbing on doesn't actually exist in the overhead shot. You can actually tell based on her angle relative to the door that she's supposedly facing. And don't even get me started on how there's nothing for her to anchor her swing from, and that her swing's momentum doesn't match the angle of her landing. You can tell that this was probably at one point a montage that was cut down to one final swing in the final release. Just saying, the Bruno's room scene really bothered me. But of everything in this movie, no character has quite as many interesting animation details as Dolores. Like here in We Don't Talk About Bruno, where the fish girl, the only non-family member in the lineup, gets replaced in the dancing with Dolores. So weird detail, right? Probably some leftover element from the production. But what's really interesting are Dolores' character details. Like here where she's forced to cover her ears when the fireworks start going off because of her super hearing. Or here where she claps using only 2 fingers because, again, doing more than that would hurt her ears. Or here where she casts an evil side eye to her cousin Isabella. Hold on, what? That sort of a passive-aggressive look isn't something that I would expect to see out of a sweet, unassuming character like Dolores. I mean, this is a character that a ton of people stand for being the unsung hero of the family. But then I did what I tend to do. I dug a bit deeper, and I really started to think about what we see and hear from Dolores throughout this movie. And bit by bit, the pieces started to add up. Dolores is actively working against the family. She is miserable. She is sick of getting passed over, and she's weaponizing Mirabel in order to sabotage the family and extinguish the miracle. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that an uncomfortable truth? I just have one thing to say to that. Let's start off with some of the details I already mentioned about Dolores' gift. We're told in the opening song that because of her super gift of...
Yeah, I'm not going to the store. ran away, oh no. Stupid thing!
Hearing she... And it doesn't seem to be much of an exaggeration, as we see that she's able to hear conversations happening elsewhere in town, likely behind closed doors.
Dolores, do we have a date?
Tonight, he wants 5 babies.
And while that seems like it'd be a cool power in theory, in actual practice, this thing would be miserable. Her sound sensitivity doesn't seem like it's able to turn off, as it makes her actively recoil when things like fireworks go off around her. As a result, we see that she's constantly hearing information that she doesn't want to be picking up.
No one has to know.
It's also something that scientifically would slowly be driving her insane. You see, the amygdala is this little group of neurons roughly in the center of the brain that helps us with emotional responses, specifically when processing fear responses. When she cowers because of those fireworks, boom! Big ol' shot of amygdala activity as her fight or flight response kicks in. Because those sorts of jarring sounds are important for a human's survival, they tend to jump the line, so to speak, when it comes to processing. It's actually believed that that's one of the reasons why the amygdala is in the center of the brain. It gives it close proximity to all the other important functions of the brain, again, to jumpstart our survival instinct. The thing is, because Dolores' hearing is so good, she would actually be inundated with these sorts of inputs all the time, experiencing a constant sensory overload. We're talking about someone who can literally hear an eye twitching from a completely different room of the house.
Frontline.
Oh, and Lisa, I heard her eye twitching all night.
Her life spent hearing everything in the town and walls around her would be miserable. She'd barely be able to focus on anything or get a night's rest. But it's a blessing. It can't be that bad. These powers are meant to be a miracle, I hear you saying. And sure, some of the powers are admittedly really cool. But Dolores, Tia Peppa, and Bruno, well, they got the short end of the stick on that one. Healing with food, great. Super strength, awesome. Controlling the weather, fine, in theory. But having your own private rain cloud follow you around when you're in a bad mood, thereby making your bad moods worse? Clearly the face of someone feeling #blessed, but it's worth remembering that Dolores' mom. Bad powers just seem to run on that side of the family.